What is happening, everybody? MG here, MG Covers, bringing you a brand new sports handicapping video. Title of this video, my NFL power rankings for week 4. Super excited to dive into this. Going to be an educational video. We're going to define what power rankings are, give you the correct terminology. Before we do that, as always, if you're watching this video for the first time, greatly appreciate you subscribing to the channel. Big, huge shout out to all you guys. That last video we did recapping college football, #1 video for the time period. So, man, I greatly appreciate all the support, all the likes, all the views on that video. Thank you so much. Greatly appreciate that. If you haven't subscribed to the channel already, greatly appreciate you doing that. If you follow me on social media, get a ton of content on Instagram. My screen name there is MGCovers, Covers spelled with a Z. Same screen name on Twitter. And there's a link to follow me on Instagram in the description box of this video. Okay, so let's dive into it. I did this just about every week last year, and I think I did it 2 years ago as well. But we're going to go through my power rankings for NFL. Now, as you know, if you're new, I'll go ahead and explain this to you. And if you're not, it's a good recap if you know this. But my power rankings, this is basically my model for NFL, which means there's no bias factored into these power rankings. It is 100% statistically driven, right? So I use stats that correlate to winning, and then we calculate a line. And then, of course, after that, we create power rankings ranking the team. So it's not necessarily to have all the teams in order of who's better, but it's designed to create a line for the game. Now, the problem with the majority of quote power rankings that you see, they're not statistically driven. For example, in this video, we're going to compare my power rankings to ESPN. And those are what we call biased power rankings, because it's basically somebody's opinion of which team is better than the other team. And this has gotten real popular in the sports betting community for people to quote create power rankings again. But the majority of people that are doing that, it's not statistically driven. So if it's not statistically driven, then how are they creating the power rankings? They're basically giving you their opinion of which team they think is better than the other team. So simply, if it's not statistically driven, all it is their opinion of who is better. Okay, that's not sports handicapping. Okay, that's basically somebody's opinion and has bias factored in it, because if you're not using stats to create lines, then what are you using? You're using bias, right? What you think, what you see, and what you think and see and hear the most is what you actually believe. So the danger of doing that, and we'll use this example, somebody might be watching this video, so wouldn't it be good to at least create my own power rankings? Well, here's the problem with that. How many of you watching this video had Arizona last week -14 against Dallas? Drum roll, none of you. None of you. How many of you had Miami -50? Nobody. So the problem is that once you factor in the bias, more times than not, it's going to be heavy chalk, which means you're going to have a lot of, the good team playing the bad team, you're going to have the good team favored, and it just dilutes the effectiveness of having a statistically driven model. So when we go through this and I show you my power rankings, these power rankings that I create for the model are 100% statistically driven. This is not my opinion. This is straight from the model. So first off, you see on the screen, we're going to compare mine to ESPN. So ESPN has San Francisco #1, Miami #2, Philadelphia #3, Kansas City 4, and Buffalo 5. No surprises there. And what's interesting about that, when you read that and see that those are the top 5 teams, that sounds right? Because what they're doing is that's all based on bias. That has all kinds of, I'm trying to find something in here. That has a lot of bias factored into it, right? San Francisco 3-0, Miami 3-0, Philadelphia 3-0, Kansas City 2-1, Buffalo 2-1. So it's heavy chalk, right? No surprises there. Now let's take that and compare that to my power rankings for this week. Okay. So we have Buffalo number 1, San Francisco number 2, Houston number 3, Philadelphia number 4, and Miami 5. So the only big surprise really is we have Buffalo as the number 1 team in NFL based on, coming from my statistical model. The big surprise there is Houston there. Houston is 1 and 2. And we'll come back to Houston a little bit later in this video. So that's my top 5. Let's look at the bottom 5 for ESPN. And what's interesting about that, when you look at mine, I need to point this out, very similar to ESPN's power rankings, right? Very, very close. So heavy chalk in a lot of ways, with the one exception being Houston in there. And we don't have Kansas City in our top 5. But everything else is, very similar. All right, ESPN bottom 5. These are bottom 5 teams in their power rankings for NFL for week 4. Houston, Tennessee, Carolina, Denver, and Chicago. And another interesting note about that Miami game, a lot of people, I'll show you in a second, you see a ton of recency bias in NFL. What that means is people will overreact. The marketplace will overreact to what happened in that week. Miami scores 70 points. I haven't looked at it, but I promise you they'll be a public team this week. They just will. Ironically, Miami is playing Denver, and you'll see here in a second, I have Denver as the second worst team in NFL. So, obviously now in retrospect, they would have won. Obviously they wouldn't have been like, minus 50 or anything like that. But the point is that scored a lot of points against a really, really poor team. All right. So Houston, Tennessee, Carolina, Denver, Chicago. Let's see how it looks compared to my lines. Okay. We have Giants, New York Jets. And again, even though it says 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, we start with the 5th worst team and work down to the bottom. Okay. Hopefully I'm saying that right. It actually should be 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, or maybe not. All right. So Giants, New York Jets, Chicago, Denver, and we have Las Vegas as the worst team in NFL right now. So similarities, we both have Chicago in there, and we both have Denver in there, and that's pretty much it. And I think as the weeks go on, you'll see big discrepancies. That's why it's always fun to do these between my line and the sportsbook line. But it's very important to remember is that really good model. People often ask about what's the best model I have. Believe it or not, it's NFL. I've never had a losing season in NFL. So it's a very, very solid model. Now, let's take that information that we have now and let's take a look at some of the lines here. And obviously, we have Houston at 3. Houston's 1 and 2. That's probably why you'll see them undervalued right now. And they're playing Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh got a win against Vegas. I struggled to win that game. Vegas, worst team in NFL. So take that for what it is. And you can already see publics all over Pittsburgh. They're getting 59% of the ticket count. However, look at that line. That line's already moved in my direction. Had Houston there at plus 4.5 open. Now it's down to plus 3. And you can probably get that for what, plus 150, plus 160, somewhere in there. See if we can pull this up. Whoops. Let me see if we can get the odds in. Okay. Odds. Yep. Plus 165, plus 160, depending on the book. So really, really good value there with Houston. And again, like we always talked about, we're not saying Houston's going to win, but there's a lot of value on that side. And then the other big game, we have 2 of the top 5 teams in my power rankings, as well as ESPN, is going to be that Miami, Buffalo, probably the game of the week. And again, look at it, just what I talked about. Public will overreact to, you already knew the public was going to be all over Miami, 56% of the ticket count, but the line has moved in their favor from 3 down to 2.5. And of course, Buffalo, Miami's the dog on the line, but getting a majority of ticket count. Be interesting to see what that line does, because that's a very important number, going from 3 down to 2.5. 3 is the most popular margin of victory in NFL. So interesting to see what happens there. So again, lean on Houston there, and then just keep that in mind when you're looking at power rankings. Again, if it's not statistically driven, using stats that that you have tested that correlate to winning, all it is basically just somebody's opinion of who is better than that team. So not really relevant to sports betting per se. All right. So greatly appreciate you watching this video. If you'd like to have access to all my lines for NFL as well as college football, I'm not sure how many college football games we have, but we have all lines out for this weekend. We also have soccer right now. Soccer will get rolling probably the second week in October with all the major leagues, English Premier League, Liga, Bundesliga. We'll have lines for all those matches. So if you want access to that, as well as all my coaching videos, $50 a month, link to join in the description box. If you want everything I just mentioned, in addition to all my plays, $100 a month. And you can get everything on the site instead of paying $100 a month, which will be $1,200 in 1 year. You can join for an entire year. That's the best value. $500 a month, $500 for an entire year. Link to join in the description box. Like this video. Greatly appreciate you watching. Talk to you guys soon. Peace.